When I'm going through the book of Ecclesiastes, I'm trying to go chapter by chapter, all right? It's a difficult book. I have no problem admitting that. And when I look at a chapter, sometimes I get to studying it and going through it, and so, boy, there's more here. There's more than you can preach in one sermon. That was chapter 5. Chapter 5, it took 2 weeks to get through the chapter. There are some chapters I get to study and look and say, Lord, I don't know if there's enough here for a sermon. Maybe a devotion, but I don't know if there's enough for a full sermon. And I never want you to come to church and feel like you got cheated, feel like you didn't get your money's worth. Of course, I got a baby to go see, so you know it's not going to be... But boy, chapter 6 was a tough chapter for me. And let's read it. Let's read it and see what the Lord gives us from it. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun. It is common among men. A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it's an evil disease. If a man beget 100 children, you have to understand in that day children were a blessing. All right, that would have been considered a good thing. All right, in that day. So you had to kind of transport yourself to this. If a man beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. For he cometh in with vanity, and departeth in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. Moreover, he hath not seen the sun, nor known anything. This hath more rest than the other. Yea, though he live 1,000 years twice told, yet hath he seen no good. Do not all go to one place. All the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not filled. For what hath the wise more than a fool? What hath the poor that knoweth to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. That which hath been is named already, and it is known that it is man. Neither may he contend with him that is mightier than he. Seeing there be many things that increase vanity, what is man the better? For who knoweth what is good for man in this life? All the days of his vain life which he spendeth as a shadow. For who can tell a man what should be after him under the sun? Most of the chapter really is repetitious of a theme that Solomon has stated earlier, and it is the futility of riches, or the futility of a life without God. It's written from the standpoint of a man looking at a world that makes no sense and trying to make sense of it all. Where is meaning? Where is fulfillment? Where is the good in life without the Lord? And there's a chapter break here, but really it's a continuation of what was said in the previous chapter. If you go back to chapter 5 and verse 18, you really get the context. Verse 18, behold that which I have seen. It is good and comely for one to eat and to drink and to enjoy the good of all his labor that he taketh under the sun, all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it is his portion. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God. In other words, what Solomon is saying is take what God has given you and enjoy it. If you have your needs met and if you have the ability to enjoy life, then don't waste that blessing by coveting for something else. It is a good life that if you enjoy the work that you do. It is a good life if you like the people that you live with. It is a good life if you are content with the possessions that you have. So really the theme of those verses is contentment. When we come to chapter 6, it is the same theme, but it's cast in a different light. And he's going to encourage us to to have contentment by showing us the discontentment of this world. In other words, you think that the grass is greener on the other side. Let me tell you why you're wrong. That's basically what he's going to say in this chapter. Now, when we were in chapter 5 several weeks ago, the message was on contentment. Contentment. Sunday night, we were in Philippians chapter 4. And the message largely was on contentment. Tonight, in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, the theme, boy, you're looking excited about this. The theme is contentment. And I tried to find something else in it, but it is about contentment. So you may be thinking, boy, we're hearing a lot of preaching about contentment. Here's what I think. Maybe somebody needs to hear it. Maybe this is such an important principle of life that, you know, sometimes it just takes 2 or 3 times for it really to burn deep into our heart. So tonight, for one more time, the theme is contentment. Now I take the chapter and I divide it into 3 sections. First of all, I see the mystery of money without meaning. The mystery of money without meaning. Look at verse number 1. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men. Now you'll find that statement several times in the book of Ecclesiastes. He uses the word evil not in a moral sense, not like it's wicked, but in the sense of disaster, trouble, calamity. You may remember in Jonah chapter 3 that God repented of the evil which he had said that he would do, and he did it not. So God had determined that he was going to punish Nineveh and wipe them out, and the word is evil. It doesn't mean that God was going to do something wrong. God was going to do something wicked or sinful to them, but the disaster, the calamity that was getting ready to come to them, then the word is evil. There are several things that Solomon says are evil. Just for cross-reference, go back to chapter 2 and look, if you would, in verse number 21. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and is great evil. Solomon says it's really bad to work all of your life, make a good living, build a profitable business, and leave something good behind and some no good inherits it. That's what he says in verse number 21. I've seen that happen. Where a man builds a good business and he leaves it to kids and the kids don't know how to manage it. Or a Christian man leaves a sizable inheritance to a son or a daughter who's not walking right and they're just going to blow it is what they're going to do. Solomon would probably say don't do that. Don't leave a good inheritance to a bad person. He says that's an evil thing. That's bad. That's bad. Look at chapter 5. Chapter 5. Verse number 13. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely, riches kept for the owners thereof to their hurt. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand. And as he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. This also is a sore evil, that to all points as he came, so shall he go. And what profit hath he that hath labored for the wind? It's a bad thing to leave a good inheritance to a bad son, but it's also a bad thing to work all of your life and consume everything and not leave anything behind. Some people work themselves to death and leave just as broke as they came. Yeah. Well, most of us would probably be in that category, all right? It's okay. Sometimes it's because they're greedy and they can't get enough. Sometimes it's because there is so much travail, they just cannot get ahead no matter how hard they work. You know, if you don't have insurance, health insurance tonight, health insurance is an expensive thing. And there are some people that just determine, we just can't afford health insurance. Did you know one doctor's visit, one trip to the emergency room, one surgery will wipe you out financially? You can spend the rest of your life paying for it. Sure can. It can ruin your credit. It'll sink you into debt. And it's like, how do I ever pay this off? And it's just how life happens. So Solomon is observing life. And he says there's some evils, that there's some things that I see that are just not good. And I thought about this afternoon when I was looking at this, that one of the great skills that is needed to make it through life and to navigate through the pitfalls of life is to know good from bad. Because the world around you calls good evil and evil good, and it's really bad when you can't tell the difference or won't say the difference. Some things are just bad. Abortion is evil. Drunkenness is evil. Fornication is evil. Democrats are evil. It's just God help us to never be so politically correct that we won't identify things that are wrong. That's bad. You shouldn't hang around with that person. He's not good for you. That's a bad decision you're ready to make. You're going down the wrong path. Be bold enough to say it. So he says, I've seen something in life. He said it's a bad thing. So what is it, Solomon? Well, verse 2. It's a man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth. Yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof. Can you imagine having everything you could possibly want? Not need, but want. Very few people can say, I have no wants. There is nothing I want. I know one man that could say that, but I know very few people that can say that, right? But here's a man who wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, but what profit is it to have everything if you can't enjoy it? That's what he finds in verse 2. There are people who can afford anything that they want to buy, but they have health problems, they have family problems, they have mental problems, and they can't enjoy life at all. And all of their money, and all of their toys, and all of their possessions does not bring them happiness. They've made a good living, but not a good life. So what good is it? What good is it? I was in Lowe's yesterday looking at some storage racks and things like that. And there was a man come down the same aisle that I was in. And I'm just describing what I saw. I'm not being mean or anything. But he was pushing a cart. And in that cart were 4 dogs. In Lowe's. Little, I don't know, mousy tongue dogs or Shih Tzu dogs or whatever, just little dogs. And he had 4 of them in a little blanket. And he's pushing these dogs around in this Lowe's cart. And he was hanging on to the cart. It was holding him up. And he was a big man. I mean, he was a big guy. He had braces on both knees, so he's got knee problems. Could barely walk. Couldn't have been able to walk without that cart. And he's breathing. He's red in the face, and I'm afraid he's going to have a heart attack. You know, what are we going to do with these dogs if he drops over dead like here? And he's picking up stuff, and he's getting it. And I went out to the parking lot, and he was out there ahead of me, and it's a it's got to be brand spanking new, expensive truck with all the bells and whistles, and he's putting his dogs in that truck. So he's either got a whole lot of debt or he's got a whole lot of money, right? One or the other. But he's evidently got some means. But he is not enjoying life. Not enjoying life. If you enjoy life, if you love your family, if you enjoy the work that you do, that is better than being rich. The point that he's making is that money doesn't buy happiness. And if you had to choose between the two, you should choose to just enjoy life with what you have. There are some people who have enough and they live comfortably, but they can't enjoy it because it is not enough for them. So don't go through life bemoaning what you don't have. Enjoy what you do have. I'll give you a good example of it. There's a guy in the Old Testament, his name is King Ahab. He's a king. He's got enough. He's got enough. But he's a spoiled brat is what he is. Being a king, being brought up in a royal family, he probably was given everything handed to him on a silver platter, and he grew up expecting that he would get anything that he wanted, and now he is an adult and there is something that he wants. He has an entitlement mentality. He's got many vineyards, but he can't enjoy the vineyards that he has because of the one vineyard that he doesn't have. Huh? If you never tell your children no, and if you're always just buying them everything that they want, you are spoiling a child. That child will never be happy. He's not happy now with everything that he's got. Why do you think the next thing is going to make that child happy? It's a good thing every once in a while to say no just for the fun of it. Just to deny them just for the fun of it, because then you have a good barometer of what kind of attitude that they have. You got many vineyards, can't enjoy the vineyards that he has because of the one vineyard that he doesn't have. Haman. Haman in the book of Esther, he is the second in command in Persia. Everybody in the land looks up to him. Ought to make him happy. But he can't enjoy all them people looking up to him because there's one man named Mordecai that won't look up at him. Huh? You know, there could be just one person that really gets your goat. Are you thinking of him? Don't say the name. There could be one person that really just gets your goat, and you let that one person ruin your relationship with other people. There are a few people in this world that wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. But I'm not going to let that ruin the fact that there's a whole lot of other people that do love me. Right? Well, that's what he's saying in verse 2. What good is it? What good is it to have all this wealth and honor and riches, all of this, and you can't enjoy it? It says in verse 3, if a man beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. Boy, that's strong. Now, nobody I know has had 100 kids. So it's hyperbole is what it is. So in verse 2, you have a man who has everything that he wants. That's the extreme of possessions. In verse 3, here's a man with 100 offspring. That's the extreme of posterity. I hope that you find pleasure in your children. My wife is texting me pictures, and I desperately want to pull the phone out and look at another picture, and I'm not going to. But boy, it's fun watching them grow up. Seeing them grow up into adulthood, hopefully be functional adults. It's fun having grandkids. Here's a man, long life and a whole lot of kids. But his soul is not filled with good. Oh, what a contrast. So here's what Solomon says. Also that he hath no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. Now there's a hint here that he dies not beloved because he's not given a proper burial. And in the Bible, the way that a man is buried shows respect and honor. In Jeremiah 22 and verse number 18, concerning Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the Lord said, thou shalt not lament for him. Thou shalt not lament for him. He shall be buried with the burial of an ass, drawn and cast forth beyond the gates of Jerusalem. He's not going to have he's going to be buried like an animal. Look back here in chapter 5. Chapter 5 and look at verse number 11. I think this is what he's talking about. When goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to be the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? Here's what he's talking about. Verse number 11 indicates there are some rich men who have relatives hanging around like a leech, wondering when he's going to die so we can divide the spoil. Right? Well, I think that's what's happening in chapter 6 and verse 3. Here's a man, lived a long life, had a lot of children, dies without proper honor and respect. And so here's a conclusion. An untimely birth is better than he. That is really, really strong right there. If your situation is that you have a charmed life and no good comes out of it, you'd have been better not to have been born. That's pretty strong, isn't it? Now, how is that possible? Why is that? Could it be that all that wealth, all that luxury, all that extravagance, could it be that it could cause you to make bad choices, to choose some bad companions, get involved in some bad stuff? Maybe that's why it is. But his soul be not filled with good. His hands were filled, but his soul was not filled. And here's what he's doing. He's making the point there is something better than riches. There is something better than a long life. That is goodness is what it is. It's goodness. Look at verse 4. For he, I think he's talking about the baby with the untimely birth. For he cometh in with vanity and departeth in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. Moreover, he hath not seen the sun, nor known anything. This hath more rest than the other. Well, that's depressing, isn't it? Here's this baby that's stillborn. He comes and knows nothing. He doesn't know what he's missing. So he's not made miserable by what he can't enjoy. And they're both going to the grave. But at least the baby's going without all the sorrow and the angst and the trouble of life. That's what he's saying. Now I want you to stop for just a minute. Stop for just a minute. Look right here. I don't think that way. I've been depressed. I've never been so depressed. I wish I'd never been born. I've never been suicidal. At no time in my life have I had so much trouble that I thought I'd have been better off to have never been here. I've never had that much trouble in my life. I've never seen that much emptiness in my life. How? Why? Because the meaning of my life is not in money. It's not in possession. It is not in pleasure. It's not in position. We live, as Christians, we live on a different plane than the rest of the world. We have set our affection on things above, not on things on the earth. It's the only way to make sense of life. It says in verse 6, yea, though he live 1,000 years twice told, yet hath he seen no good. Do not all go to one place. If you live 2,000 years and you can't enjoy those years, then it's meaningless. No matter how long you live, no matter how much you have, it's an evil thing to have all of that and not enjoy life. Money without meaning. In verse 7, I think the second thought is the mystery of employment without enjoyment. Now in verse 1 through 6, he talks about a rich man who has everything he could possibly want, can't enjoy it. But now, in verse number 7, here's the poor man. He's working just to put food on the table, and it's never enough. There's no end. Look at verse number 7. All the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not filled. The most basic instinct of man is to eat. It's to put something in his mouth. You get hungry enough, and you do desperate things to fill your mouth. Esau thought he was starving to death. He wasn't. He thought he was starving to death, and he sold his birthright for one meal. For one meal. So a man will do desperate things to fill his mouth. My favorite restaurant is Grand Marlin, Pensacola Beach. Now, Grand Marlin is a place you go to about once a year. You have to save up for 4 or 5 months to get there and hope somebody takes you. But if not, then Grandma, I've been there just a couple of times, and every time that you go, it's not a meal, it is an experience, is what it is. And man, you savor every bite. Walk out stuffed. I won't eat for days. I'll be hungry in 5 or 6 hours. Yeah. The appetite is not filled. We have a gift card right now. Sometime back, Christmas or some birthday or something, y'all gave us a bunch of gift cards, and somebody gave us a gift card to Global Grill in Pensacola. I love Global Grill. Been twice in my life. We've got this gift card to Global Grill. We haven't been yet, and we're waiting on a special occasion, something like, the birth of a grandbaby or something like that. Global Grill, if you've never been to Global Grill is where you go and you don't order off the menu. You just say whatever the chef has tonight, whatever is his specialty tonight, and they'll bring something out, and I'm telling you, the food is just wonderful. And by the morning, I'm starving to death. Now that's an example, that's an illustration of life. Work hard as you can to fill your life up with good things, and the appetite is never filled. It's never filled. He says in verse 8, for what hath the wise more than the fool? What hath the poor that knoweth to walk before the living? Now this is a tough verse for me, all right? I'm looking at it, saying, Lord, you got to help me with this verse. And I've said this a number of times, but these statements, it's true if you leave God out of the equation. The wise has a lot of advantage over the fool. The king has a lot of advantages over the poor. But when less life is over, whether you're educated or whether you're a fool, whether you're a king or poor, if you've left God out of it, then there is no advantage. There is none. When the wise man stands before God, God is not interested in his degrees and his credentials and his education. Those things don't touch a man's soul. And if your soul is devoid of God, then you are in no better position than a man that is in the upper echelons of society. He says in verse 9, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. Better to be happy with what you do have than with what you don't have. Looking at what you don't have creates discontent with what you do have. Yeah. That's what TV commercials are designed to do. It's designed to feed you greed of all the things that you don't have. That car, whatever it might be, whatever is flashing, forget about the filth on the thing. Forget about the fornication and the cursing and the drunkenness and the homosexuality that you're piping into your living room. Set that aside. Man, the commercials themselves. You know what the commercials are designed to do? It is designed to make your desire wonder. Boy, if I had that, if I had this, if I had that, if I could get that. Think of how many times you have piped sin into your living room. Oh, it's quiet. Well, that's what it is, isn't it? Think how many times you pipe that into your living room and you just keep watching it. Right? Just keep watching it. But even if everything was just holy and godly, the commercials designed to make you want something that you don't have. What you have is better than what you don't have. So this man, he works hard. All he does is he feeds the sensual appetite, and it's never filled, and there's no God in the picture. His mouth is filled, but his soul is empty. What's the meaning behind all of that? It's employment without enjoyment. So verse 10, 11, and 12, there's the mystery of questions without answers. So look at verse 10. That which hath been is named already, and it's known that it's man. Neither may he contend with him that is mightier than he. We already know what's going to happen because we've seen it before. This is not the first indulgent society. This is not the first culture that's obsessed with riches and pleasures and sin. We've already seen this before. Verse 11, seeing there be many things that increase vanity, what is man the better? So many ways to waste a life. So many ways to mess something up. Look at a man who has spent his life chasing the wind and he's reaped the whirlwind. What good was your life anyway? What good is it? Now, hold your finger right here. I show you one verse and I'm almost done. Hold your finger. Go back to Genesis chapter 15. I was reading this the other morning. Genesis 15. And look what the Lord says to Abraham in verse number 1. These things, the word of the Lord came after these things. The word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram. I am thy shield and will give thee exceeding great reward. Is that what he said? No. Look at it. I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. Here's what's interesting to me. After these things, after what things? After chapter 14. You know what happened in chapter 14? So kings went down to Sodom where Lot was, took him, kidnapped him, took him away, took all the goods out of Sodom. Abraham got his servants together, went out, chased them down, recovered Lot in the doing, recovered King Sodom and all the goods back. And Sodom, the king of Sodom and Sodom, wanted to give a reward to Abram. And Abram refused it. He wouldn't take anything from the king of Sodom. He went home empty-handed. That's what he did. And in the very next verse, God said, Abram, I am thy exceeding great reward. I am better for you than anything Sodom could have given you. I am your reward. What a contrast from just letting God be your reward from the Ecclesiastes 6 man seeking his reward from this world. I'll come to verse number 12 and I'll wrap it up. For who knoweth what is good for man in this life? All the days of his vain life which he spendeth as a shadow. For who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun? Only God knows what's good for you. You're liable to choose something that's bad for your testimony, something that'll throw away your life. He said, what does tomorrow hold? What should be after him under the sun? Boy, you lay out all your plans for retirement and one bad report from the doctor. Throw all those plans in an upheaval. Who can tell? Who can tell a man what should be after him under the sun? We've read all this before. Vanity of life without God. Paul Azinger was a professional golfer. At the age of 33, he had won 10 tournaments and just won the PGA Championship at age 33. And immediately was diagnosed with cancer at age 33. That knocked the wind out of you, wouldn't it? Yeah. Paul Azinger had been going to a Bible study at a church, and he remembered a statement that the Bible teacher had said. And the statement was, we're not in the land of the living trying to get to the land. We're not in the land of the living going to the land of the dying. We're in the land of the dying trying to get to the land of the living. And he said, boy, that really helped him. So enjoy the life that God has given you. Enjoy the wealth that God has given you. Be content with his blessings and live a life of service to God and to others. That's the way to enjoy life. Life is a dead-end street if there's no God involved. Amen. Ecclesiastes 6 is dark. It is dark and it's depressing. Can't wait to get to chapter 7. But I'm glad Ecclesiastes 6 is not my reality. Amen. Somebody said that, Jacob, come if you will. Somebody said that the grand essentials to happiness in life are something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. I have all three in Jesus Christ. Something to do, live for him. Someone to love, to love him. Something to hope for, his coming, his soon return. What a way to live.